Sportsman Jacobs here on talkSPORT. Andy Brassel, European football expert, has joined us in the studio. Andy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you both?
Good. We have to start in Paris, of course, after the PSG Marseille game last night. 5 red cards at the end of the game. I'm sure most people, it's gone viral the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game.
It wasn't that bad looking at it, the brawl itself. I've seen worse.
Yeah, I mean, kicking each other and smacking each other in the face, it probably is a red card, though. I don't think you know.
Yes.
I mean, at one point, I thought the commentary on BT, they said, well, maybe you'll just sort of take stock and just have a word with them all. But that wasn't the referee's approach, was it?
No, I think it's very much a situation that any parent of children under 10 would be familiar with, where you take so much and then you just pull out some quite draconian measures once a certain threshold is reached. The only surprise, really, in the flurry of red cards is that it didn't come earlier in the game. Neymar did very well to last the whole 90 minutes, and we'll come back to the Neymar bit, the most important bit of it, in a minute, before we sort it out. 5 players sent off, 3 from Paris Saint-Germain, 2 from Marseille, and only one of them by VAR, which was Neymar, him clipping Álvaro González round the back of the head, and they'd had a bit of a ding-dong for most of the game. But seeing this sort of thing between Paris Saint-Germain and Marseille is not a surprise. I think the frustration of PSG, and it was started by the tackle of Kurzawa on Benedetto, after which was pretty much Paris's last chance, and Marseille started to pull it out of defence, and he put a reducer on him on the halfway line as Marseille broke out. I think there are a lot of reasons for Paris frustration. Of course, there's the bigger picture. There's the fact that they've started the season with 2 defeats for the first time since 1984. They've not scored in either of those games. That if you go backwards and look at their last 4 domestic games, because of course they restarted football after the truncation of the French League season at 2019-2020 with the 2 cup finals, the Coupe de la Ligue final and the Coupe de France final. If you include those 2 in 4 domestic games that are kind of this season, even if the 2 cup finals belong to last season, they scored 1 goal. They scored 1 goal in that. And I know they've had issues in terms of conditioning, in terms of having the Champions League in the middle. It's really not good enough. And you go back to Thursday, their first league game of the season at Lens, and obviously there was a big controversy over them bidding that to go on holiday to Ibiza, where they all caught coronavirus, or most of the players who went there, and later Kylian Mbappe got diagnosed with it on international duty as well. And Thomas Tuchel saying after that game against Lens, and Lens were a much smaller club, a much less moneyed club than Paris Saint-Germain, as everyone is, of course. Bear in mind that Lyon, who have the second budget, have a third of the budget of Paris Saint-Germain. And even though he had those players out, he still had Verratti and Draxler and Kimpembe to go into that game with Lens. And Tuchel said, well, if we'd have got a draw out of it, it would have been a good result. And I was like, come on, man, are you kidding? But seriously, it was interesting, actually, after this game against Marseille yesterday, Leonardo, the sporting director of Paris Saint-Germain, now for the second time, was asked, well, is Thomas Tuchel in trouble? And he said, well, not at the moment. Like not at all, but not at the moment. He said, well, we can't jump to conclusions. It's only 2 league games in.
Yes.
We're not totally taking it off the table. Also, you have to speak about the context between Paris Saint-Germain and Marseille. And it's globally, I know people will look at this and say, 5 red cards is not good for the game of football. A proper rivalry between Paris Saint-Germain and Marseille, the 2 biggest clubs in France, is good for French football. But especially when Marseille finished second last season. And to see them do a really good job on Paris Saint-Germain and beat them for the first time in any game since November 2011.
Wow.
That is a big deal. And Marseille fans celebrated it. I mean, I know you've seen the pictures, Paul, of them breaking social distancing to get their flares out at the airport and all the rest of it. Of course, there are Marseille fans everywhere in France as well, and a big load of them in Paris at the Bir Hakem Bridge, which has the Eiffel Tower as its backdrop. They got a picture taken of them off the boat with the Eiffel Tower lit up in the background, and they had a big banner saying, "This isn't the capital, it's Marseille, baby." And all of that was part of it. But having said that, the most concerning thing, taking away the context of the match and the rivalry and all that sort of stuff, was what happened to Neymar. Because Neymar tweeted afterwards, the only thing I regret is not hitting this idiot in the face, meaning Álvaro González, because they'd had words throughout the game. Now, as he was coming off the pitch, Neymar claimed to the fourth official that there'd been some racist abuse. he also was caught on camera saying to Alvaro in the first half, this was about 35, 40 minutes in, look, no racism, that's not on. So there's definitely something for the LFP, the French league, to investigate. And there is going to be a spotlight on them, and there should be a big spotlight on them. Because when you think of another previous high-profile player who's had to put up with that sort of nonsense, Mario Balotelli, when he was at Nice, for example, he was racially abused a couple of times. The league did not deal with it. They didn't end up charging Dijon, the fans who abused him. They said there was insufficient evidence, which was nonsense. There was plenty, and they just ducked dealing with it. Now with Neymar, they can't duck dealing with it. They have to deal with this, or they will be judged by the rest of Europe and the world, and rightly so.
Interesting. What about AVB? Is he improving? Do you think he'll ever come back?
The manager of Marseille these days.
I remember when he got these jobs very early, and I remember Mourinho saying about he's going to be one of the best managers in Europe. Don't worry about this fella. And all credit to him, really. He could have sort of folded, but he seems to be doing a decent job.
And Andy, as a Chelsea fan, would it seem unreasonable to say that he was kind of the victim of his own hubris in those early days? I don't think that is unreasonable. And he's not completely lost that. I mean, he was describing his tete-a-tete with Thomas Tuchel afterwards in the press conference, and he said how Tuchel had said to him, "You should have played the lottery this week." And he said, "Well, did you play the lottery before you beat Atalanta?"
Yeah.
And then he actually described in better detail some of the insults that they'd exchanged while they were on the touchline. And he does have that spikiness about him still. But his players absolutely love him. And it's quite interesting to see Florian Thauvin, who scored the winner, who's come back from nearly a year out with injury, who scored the winner against Paris Saint-Germain, saying, "I've got a year left on my contract. The club want to sell me. But why would I quit when I can be in the Champions League with Marseille and I can be coached by AVB, who has looked after me the whole time that I've been injured?" And I think, as a coach, if you can show that sort of what Julian Nagelsmann would describe as social competence, that ability to relate to all members of your squad. He's got the best out of Dimitri Payet again as well, another player who they're trying to ship because he's got such huge wages, or did have such huge wages. They got him to settle down and become the creative fulcrum of the team, the best player in the team. He's pushing the right buttons for Marseille at the moment. And interestingly, having said that this was going to be his last season because it's the second year of his 2-year contract, he's open to staying now. But of course, he's always said he's not going to coach into his 50s. And he's 42 now?
Wow.
Okay.
So, Andy Brussels with us. We'll look elsewhere around Europe, some other big stories and some transfer stories as well involving big players, including Kylian Mbappe, very shortly.